Hey, welcome to the St. Louis Syndicate. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. This is NFL Steam Week 6. A lot of action out there, Brandon. And last week, if you remember, I was licking my wounds, and you kind of were too. We've had a couple of rough weeks here in the season, but luckily, if you take a look at our plays, we bounced back a little bit. We're doing pretty good in the Legends pick. We came back in our pools. I guess we'll have to explain to the group at some point in time these pools we do and how we play in
Sure.
them. But maybe that's for another day. But ultimately, we bounced back up kind of into the middle of the pack, and that's a little bit better. So they can start listening to us again for advice.
Without a doubt. Yeah, definitely made progress across the board. Uh, Seattle definitely injured me last week, but the rest of this was in range for me.
Seattle and Kyler Murray running around and leaving people in the dust and throwing up missiles to Marvin Harrison, covering and doing all kind of crazy stuff.
What a weird win. Yeah, if you can't get pressure on him, he just eventually becomes a problem because you're not going to tackle him once he gets outside of the box. Like all you can do is just contain him for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I will say in our picks, I came out on top this week, though that could have gone anyway. The way we play it out, I actually think in our overall, when you pick all 16 games, you came out a couple picks ahead of me. So these just happened to hit. And just remember, one of our key advice points is just because we say it today, midweek, make sure you're double checking on Saturday and Sunday for your updates. Listen to your favorite podcasts because ultimately, man, things change.
Without a doubt.
And we really watch the Steam movement, and you can see who's having the money bet. In this particular instance, I don't know if you would have stayed with Buffalo all the way through, if you would have switched anything with New Orleans, Kansas City, as it got closer on Monday night. Would you have made any adjustments? I think that's an interesting question.
I stuck with Buffalo, and that bit me, but I did switch over to KC and put a reasonable amount of points on them and make it through the finish line with that. So that was nice.
Yeah. So once again, early in the week, it may feel one way, but do your homework and it'll adjust out. So we've got a couple good games going on this week coming up. Some interesting conversation that we're going to have. Washington and Baltimore, right? I think we're just scared because Washington has been a terrible team for so many years, and all of a sudden, it's almost like they're too good. So how do we trust what we're seeing?
I I don't, as I took ball. I haven't. If they do it this week, then I'm gonna have to make some severe adjustments. I've continued to hold them back because look, they're playing, underdeveloped defenses, even though they have an underdeveloped defense. Their offense has just been swarming people. If Baltimore, with their much more mature team, can't box in Daniels and slow him down, then I think they have to be taken seriously. I think we're going down that RG3 year sort of situation where they just pop up and run through everybody. Um, but I'm going to stick with the priors. Look at Baltimore. Go. Hopefully, they're going to hold on to win by 7, and that's where I ended up when I looked at this.
So here's the key point, right? If you're listening to us, we like to talk about teams a lot, but this is called NFL Steam. Pay attention this week. You brought up a really good point earlier when we were just chatting. A lot of these games are hovering around that 7 and that 3. Right now, Baltimore feels really good to you at the 6.5. In real life money, not Ben Harper money or in a game money. 6.5 is good because you can get that 7. Now, if the line moves to 7, you're still probably good on a push with what you're looking at. But if it trickles up to 7.5, that's where the buyback on Washington can come into play. And so you'll see a lot of movement like that amongst the experts, the sharps, so to speak. And every game this week has it. I mean, if you just look down our lines right here, I love Dallas at 3. I love Dallas at 3.5. I do not love Dallas at 2.5.
Sure.
I do not love Buffalo, or I do not love Buffalo at a +3. I like the Jets once we get over that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of movement here we got to pay attention to this week towards as the line ends. So know where you're at.
Yeah, and it'll just be interesting to see where where they go late week to push these around because this is even for this year where a lot of them have sat in the 2.5 to 3.5 and 6.5 to 7.5 range. It's literally like almost the entire slate. Green Bay's down around the 5.5, Philly's all the way up to 9, Tennessee and Indianapolis, they can't figure out what's going on with that at all. But everybody else is in that window around the threes and the sevens, and you're going to get some weird pushes, especially something like the Jets, 2.5 right now. We have that dead coach bounce sort of thing going on. People are going to come in, they're going to buy it and push it around, and it just depends on how much the other side decides they really like Buffalo here.
And are we convinced at this point? We're not going to know until Monday. Are we convinced at this point that Josh Allen's going to play? He took a shot, and there's something to be said for these doctors going, "Hey, man, we're going to sit you out," and they might tell him on
Oh,
Friday
for
or Saturday,
sure.
but we won't find out until Monday that Allen's been ruled out due to a head injury. So we want to watch that a little bit too. So I wouldn't bet too much on Buffalo to start.
Yeah, anytime you have to restart somebody's brains with smelling salts, yeah, it get real weird when they get to the end of the week and go like, "Why are you wearing sunglasses all day?"
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So I'm on Washington. You're on Baltimore, and I think my decisions will continue to play into the fact that I pick Washington right now because Baltimore hasn't proven to me that they're a team that beats teams by 7 or more. They're winning, they're eking out, but they're barely hanging on. They're they're covering some instances, but they don't look good in their covers.
No,
And Washington right now they've got this kid that doesn't apparently understand that in the NFL he's not supposed to win yet. So
right.
people who don't know they're supposed to lose don't lose. They will keep it close.
There's something to be said for that for sure.
So that's the only reason I hang on to Washington there. The other thing I've noticed, and I know this isn't tied to one of the specific games, but I haven't noticed a lot of the 9.5+ spreads this year, and into the double digits. I mean, I can remember back when Mahomes was rolling, when Tom Brady was rolling, we were consistently seeing 13.5, 15.5. I mean, there's been a couple this year, but nothing significantly. I mean, about 8.5 is about as high as we've seen consistently.
Now it's got to be a top down thing. Like we have legitimately bad teams running around, and like they're pulled up a little bit from the depths of where they normally are, but there's just no team that is really going out there and handling their business across the board.
Yeah,
And so it's dry. Kansas City barely winning all of their games up until this last Monday has themselves in first.
yeah,
Like they don't even try to win games by margin, and they're getting out ahead of everybody else. So, and it points back to the survivor conversation where you got these, 6, 7, 8, 9 point favorites losing all the time. So nobody wants to lay that money to
no,
push it out. So yeah, we're stuck with parity, which is what the NFL's always looking for.
yeah,
They finally
they,
figured it out somehow here.
and it's a little mediocre too, to say the least. But I think a lot of it also, as I sit here and listen to your comments, which I agree with, is the injuries in the NFL are becoming a little bit more prevalent. I think there's a lack of depth. I think that in the future, we need to see the NFL open up a little bit more developmental league type things. Um, Even if it's roster based or roster driven or something, the depth behind these guys is just not there. And they're having to pull from practice squads, and then they're having to pull from who knows where, some guy that hasn't been playing. He's working, swinging a hammer, hoping for a chance. If there was a
Sure.
little bit of a better developmental type of league, um, even if it was like 7-on-7 type stuff or some sort of something to keep guys sharp and ready to play in the event that they are needed, like the minor leagues.
Yeah. No, especially, and you can't do it like in a vacuum, but having better development around the line play would, I think, balance out the variance some more.
True.
Like, hey, I have to put in a second string tackle, and now the guy is just a turnstile.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, this game's just shot because now the quarterback has somebody in his face every other play, every third play, on top of whatever holding calls come out of it. Like, you just get these weird jammed up spots where somebody that isn't being talked about a ton, but is consistent, gets taken out, and then there's nobody to pick up.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. I mean, in the NFL, they don't know what they're doing from a backup perspective. You see all the time guards getting moved to tackle, guards getting moved to center, right guard getting moved to left guard. There's just lack of consistency, and a lot of that only happens when we have a depth of an injury issue. So, a
Without
lot
a
of those
doubt.
things to pay attention to, and actually, probably some of the best handicappers know that better than anything else.
For sure.
As casual Joes, we like to look at the receivers and the quarterbacks and the running backs, but if you really understand the inline matchups, you can probably make some good decisions.
For sure. For sure. Especially when you start getting clusters of issues. Like, you lose two guys, you lose three guys, and you're just not going to have even the same width of playbook that you normally do because you got to get the ball out quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Probably a lot of information that not everybody needed, but fun to chat about nonetheless. Developmental leagues and stuff. So, on to Detroit, Dallas. This is a numbers game for me. I'm a home dog believer in a lot of instances when it's teams like Dallas who are going to be what I consider a top 16 team in the league. Um, I know that Detroit's good, but this will be a close game. Give me the field goal. Once again, if this thing gets below the 3, I start thinking, well, maybe that's where the Lions win the ball game. So, but God, that kicker Dallas has. I mean, the guy can make it from the goal line on the other side of the field. So who the hell knows, man? They're never really out of it when it comes to that.
No, that's for sure. And for me, it's just that feeling that Detroit seems to be getting everything together.
Yep.
That the offense that we thought was going to show up at the beginning of the year, extended from the end of last year, this last game that they played before they went on the break seemed like, okay, we've got this kind of figured out, and that's really what I'm leaning on. That Dallas just had to go play a late game, fight it out with Pittsburgh outdoors in some crap weather, and Detroit gets to get up off their practice field for the last 2 weeks and have an exact game plan. And so
Yep.
uh, I'm just kind of leaning that direction.
No fault in that thought process. And then finally, similarly, right, you've had Buffalo in a dogfight. We just talked about Josh Allen getting banged around. You've got
Uh-huh.
the Jets coming in from overseas. They don't have a coach anymore. Um, this is a mess, but it's a Monday night mess, and it's for the first place in the division, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
So
so.
this is this is ridiculous, right? I mean, for me, the better team here is Buffalo right now. That doesn't mean that they're the more talented team, but they're more consistent. Their coaching staff has been the same. Their quarterback's the same. They know who they are. They know that they put their cape on Superman and he'll show up. For the Jets, Superman is starting to look a little frail.
He is. He is. And this is the pure, you get a new coach, you get a one game bounce. Here we go. Like Rodgers, his arm still works. And if they can block, slow down Buffalo's rush, because I'm sure that that's exactly what McDermott's going to be looking at is let's get in his face. Let's make him pretend like he can move around. And if they can, if it turns out that Salah was the one that was kind of in the way for Rodgers to run his offense the way that he wants to run it, and he can get the wide receivers on board to go, hey, we're going to get the ball out quick. They could easily push their way through this.
I agree. It's going to be fun. Hey, good luck with your picks, everybody. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. We are the St. Louis Syndicate. Good luck.
Cheers.